Welcome to another episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill-Staxx, and today I got Stephen Gillen. How you doing, man?
Hi, Bill. How are you doing? Big hello to everyone out there too.
Thank you so much for joining me. I seen you on a couple of podcasts, and you have a really intriguing story, and I wanted to know more. You want to tell the people where you were born and raised?
I was born in England, Bill, but as a born baby, 6 months old, I was taken to Belfast. You know, this was back in the day when the war was really heavy there. I stayed there till I was 9, and I come back to London, East London, back to England. But of course, you know, I see a lot of traumas. I went through a lot of stuff over there.
Yeah, you seen an experience when you were 7, right? You saw some murders.
Look, you know, you're talking about a very nasty war. All wars are nasty. It was certainly nasty there. There was, you know, you're talking about when I was young, Bill. I didn't know. Of course, I was a baby in the pram, but sometimes guns and stuff like that would be put under my blankets to get through the checkpoints. This kind of life, you know, a lot of suspicion, a lot of murders over there. You know, a lot of bad stuff going on, a lot of darkness. You know, I see people.
What year was all this going on?
This is early 70s. You know, early 70s. I was born in 1971. So, you know, if you're looking at that period, the early 70s, you know, up to the 80s. So this was early 70s. You know, when I was 7, over there, I see someone murdered in front of me, shot, you know, in a gun battle. I had to watch that. You know, I was hiding behind a hedge, a young child. I had to watch, you know, as he died in front of me. So I see a lot of stuff.
Terrible. Yeah, that's really terrible. So would you have to move around a lot when you were with your family when the war was going on and all this confrontation?
It's kind of there. I mean, we started off in the slums there, Bill. You know, we really did in the start of it. You know, the newspapers and all this have made a big thing about that because, you know, I started there to where I am now. I mean, the houses that we was in, them tenements then, was so bad that when we moved, they were so bad a few years after. I didn't know, I'm still a young boy, but they knocked them down, you know, because they wasn't fit to live in, you know. But after that, you kind of, war creates a lot of scarcity, you know, a lot of hardships. You know, there wasn't no work, there was none of that stuff over there. There was just a lot of violence, a lot of bloodshed. So they was hard times, and people would not really go out, Bill, unless they had to, right?
Yeah. What were your ambitions back then when you were a kid? Do you remember what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I think in them days I was too young, Bill, you know, and to be honest, because of the way the world was outside the door, I wasn't really allowed out, you know. So I was the kid who'd be upstairs looking out the window at some of the other kids who'd be allowed out, right, playing on the street, wishing that could be me, right?
Yeah. So when you started getting older, what kind of what experiences did you have when you got started to get older, and where did your family, what progression happened with your family?
Well, I didn't move. I was sent away from Belfast at age 9. My surrogate mother died over there, you know, who was my carer.
Sorry for
So,
your loss.
yeah, well, she was a wonderful person, you know. She was my moon and my stars. She was everything. But, you know, it's worth mentioning because it was a big turning point in my life, obviously. But, so the men of the family, they thought, you know, because of everything, I should go back to England. You know, so I was sent back to England and East London. So, you know, I was your typical child, 9-year-old child with a little case on the boat, right, going across the water like an immigrant,
Yeah, it's
literally.
like a new world to you. You're like,
Absolutely.
who are they sending you to go stay with at that time?
They were sending me over to my mother, you know, because my mother had, you know, she had stayed in England to try and build some kind of a life for us.
So what happened once you got there? Were you a mischievous kid?
I Yeah, I mean, the trouble started then. East London, of course. I was right in the middle of that. It's a very fast place, but it's nothing like a war zone where they're shooting it out morning, noon, and night in street corners, right? Martial law. It's a
Yeah.
different world. So I'd always do more. I'd always be more. Of course, I was a bit different. I'd get into a lot of fights. But I had a lot of friends, and I kind of I was left to fend for myself, really, in many ways, because I become a lot of trouble. This was the start of it. I was a very angry young man, Bill.
How would you make money in your early days? How would you support yourself like once you became like a teenager and all that growing up?
Well, the story is, look, the middle bit is I was the feral kid out in the street, out all hours of the night then, right? Street urchin, right? And
Yeah.
I had to survive. I had to create my own family. I had to go through a lot of children's homes, foster parents, of course, where I never stayed at. I'd always run away and this kind of stuff. So I progressed from, street crime, petty crime, really, really quickly into organized crime, guns and heavy stuff and violence. I mean, I was there when I was about 15, 16, really, really there with this stuff.
Is there any situations that you could think of that happened around that time that you can explain to me?
Oh, there was many. I was sent away when I was 14. That was the first time I was sent away because I was so bad, and then, I was sent away for a stabbing when I was 16, GBH, this kind of stuff. And, the
What
gun
what
stuff.
what led you to do the stabbing? Like what led you to go that route?
I was already kind of shaped in a way. I was already shaped as a very angry kind of young man who had a lot of trauma, who was by himself, who, had been groomed, by all the older ones, because the ones I was around, they was really uh, prominent criminal families of the day, right? So
Yeah.
I was a great target for that, and I went into that life really, really easy. This was my surrogate family. So these was the learnings that I had and the role models that I had. And of course, I had this thing in me, Bill, it has to be said. I had the anger in me. I had the madness in me. I was, I'd always do more than anyone else, be gamer than anyone else, which was a crazy thing, but it has to be said that was me in the old days, and this continued to paint a picture.
Yeah, you would go a little extra than everyone else would.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So when going to being locked up and sent away, was that like a rite of passage? Because I know in the US, when I was a kid, I was hanging around gang members, and once I went to prison, it was kind of like I went to college for criminals. I learned more ways on how to act. I learned on what to do, and you know, um, is that how it is out in London too?
It is. It has to be said. I mean, I can remember as a young kid, the first time you go there, obviously I was a child when I went there, 14. But you get through that. You're made a tough stuff. I was in them days. You find your way through that. So you realize there's no more lions and tigers there no more because you kind of done that, right? It is a
Yeah,
university of crime, so it's unhelpful, for teenagers, children to go through that and be influenced further when they're still learning. And a lot of the guys even there where we was really young kids, really skinny kids, would go on to be really notorious names of the day here, but we started there, Bill.
do you remember some of the notorious names from back then when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, there was a few. I mean, there was some of the guys there from the Tottenham riots just later on, and there were some policemen got killed and other names, and armed robbers, really, top echelon armed robbers, and other mobsters and other heads of criminal gangs that would be heads of very, very prominent criminal gangs there. You know, we was there as skinny kids, really, Billy. It has to be said.
So once you went away, did it get a little more organized? And once you got out back onto the street?
I kind of, you know, I used to box a little as well when I was younger. I was a really fit one, and we was fighting all the time. You know, unfortunately, not just like, you know, with other gangs and other inmates and that side, but the officers so much as well. I mean, I was terrible in them days. I really wouldn't take it with no one. I wouldn't advise other people to do this. But the truth is, found it very hard to cope with myself, Bill. It was just the way I responded to the world, really. In many ways, it was a defense mechanism. And I knew
Yeah.
I'd be so bad like that, people would leave me alone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much,
I was
right?
the same way. I was the same way.
So it was a lot of that. When I look back and I'm not a lot of this stuff now with the wisdom, you know, and experience. I can see that it was a lot of that too.
So you're an author. So were you writing back then when you were incarcerated as a child, like in your time?
If people say to me, I mean, I'm a successful global entrepreneur in many fields. You know, I really changed my life. We'll get into that. But if you was to ask me back then, what innate skills did I have? I was a good writer and I was a good speaker. The rest I learned. The rest I learned. You know, and the thing was, Bill, you know, in them days, I was such a bad prisoner, you know, high security. I was in units as well, special units. So I was deemed as, you know, some of the worst of the worst. So they couldn't really manage and control and all this kind of stuff. We wouldn't really have a lot, you know. So, you know, maybe a paper, a pen, you know, everything was security, right? And monitored and containment.
Yeah.
So this is where I started to write. Yeah, I started the writing journey then, way back, way back.
Yeah. So I when I was looking into your background, I know that you were locked up with Charles Bronson.
I know Charlie very well. I mean, you know, I know all them guys, Bill, really, you know, because we was category A. So all the category A guys, all the notorious, all the infamous, all the high echelon guys would be that. You know, it's what they do over here. I suppose like penitentiary over there, and then they have certain super maxes there where only certain guys can go of a certain level. So, you know, I mean, one of my sentences was 17 years. So, you know, I'd done 11 years, 9 months out of that continuous. I was released to category A too. So I was with Charlie in many units. I got to know Charlie very well, you know, and all them guys, we was all together because we'd be shipped round and round to the same places over all them years, right?
Yeah. So do you want to explain what the whole case behind why you got the 17 years?
Yeah, it was armed robbery. You know, I had we used to rob anything that moved back in the day. You know, really, it was just as easy as that. You know, all kinds of stuff. You know, all kinds of stuff, and a lot of people around me and my family. In them days, there'd been a big operation. You know, in East London. A lot of the known armed robbers then of the day had been cleared up. You know, by the flying squad there. So, you know, a lot of my resources and friends, even family, you know, had been taken over that period of 2 years of what was going on there. So I
Yeah.
was working with other guys. You know, I had three armed robbery trials. I beat the first one at the Old Bailey. I beat the second one at the Old Bailey, but I got guilty for possession of firearms. And the third one, I got guilty. It was a radio. You know, there were shots fired at police. You know, and all this kind of stuff. But then I got my big sentence.
Wow. So what would be your typical day if you're not out doing robberies? Would you plan them during the day? Like,
It's a life of organized crime, to be honest with you, Bill. We're involved in all kinds of things. It's about money, right? And them days for that kind of stuff, it's about greed, you know. And of course, we was ran all faces, we call them over here, all the names of the day. You know, I mean, I would know everyone in all different parts of London, like you would maybe in New York or, Philadelphia or Boston or Connecticut and
Yeah.
further afield. So we was really into the rackets, really. We'd be into anything. I mean, that's the truth. I don't want to go into a litany of criminality, but all of it, the counterfeiting, the armed robbery, the whole 9 yards, the whole bit. Whatever was working was safe, and was worth to be, was worth it to be doing and who to do it with. But
Yeah.
it's a hard game. This life, it's wrong. It's wrong. And, it's going to force you to do things that's wrong and be with people who are wrong. So there are not good endings in a life like this.
Definitely not. So you know how the New York mob is ran. How is organized crime ran in London? Is it a similar operation, the way the structure is of the criminal organizations out there in London, or are they different than the way it is in New York?
Um, in many ways, it is. In the loose associations of guys coming together for a criminal enterprise, of course it is, because it's a very kind of family orientated thing, and we would come up, we would be known, but you may have went to school with some of these guys, or you may have done some work with them, and he's so and so's brother, and his uncle or his father so and so. So everyone knows everyone, and it's more loosely connected in the sense there's no burning the saint or the blood oath,
Yeah,
but
is there a boss? Like, is there a main boss that they kick up money to, pay tribute to?
in ways there are, because what happens is these gangs, they come up, they get very successful. It's the dynamics within them. There's usually someone that always rises, but when they get really, really successful, because you have to come up with the money, Bill. You know what it's like. The money is the thing, and then you can do more, be more, have more control. Then, of course, a boss in a hierarchy always, always, always shows itself quicker, sooner rather than later. So, yeah, of course there is. And it's exactly the same. It has to be said. The only difference is they wouldn't be burning the same. But in
Yeah,
some instances, there would be certain guys that have a certain role, like a capo or whatever, they'd be in charge of certain areas or whatever. So it's the
yeah.
same thing.
So do they try to get involved with the industry, such as the unions and stuff like that out there in London too?
It's it's different, but it's the same. We don't really have unions here as such, the way the structure is, but of course it's business led, you know.
Yeah.
But it has to be said, it's the same thing. And what I've learned is, look, there are different kinds of gangs and there are different kinds of gangsters and different kinds of mobsters. But a true kind of gangster and mobster, if you want to talk, you've got your street guys who are the violent guys who go out and do that stuff, the rough
Hmm.
stuff. But then you've got the other ones who are the brains, the kind of business people, and they're there too. And I suppose if you're looking for the real ones who can do both, then this is something else, right? This is what I've learned.
Yeah, the ones that could direct traffic and jump in the car and drive it too.
They do both. They do
Yeah.
both, and they're the one. They're the bosses. They're the bosses. In my experience, they're the ones who become bosses because they have they have the acumen and they have the fierceness, right?
Yeah. So I was in and out of prison for a lot of years, and I thought my life would never stop. I thought it was a constant cycle. I thought I would die in prison. So did you think the same way? And when did you know that you wanted to change your life?
It's funny you say that, Bill, because you know what? It was desperate. Desperate is the word. If someone asked me to put it in one word, I'd say desperate. I find it really easy because it was desperate. I mean, I didn't think I would get out of there. I think I'll be killed or I'd kill someone else, or there was a lot of violence in there, right?
Yeah.
Of course, there's nowhere to go in there. You have to face it, right? And you go round and round with it, right?
You have
But
no choice. Like you
no,
can't.
no, this is the environment, right? I mean, I see a couple of guys in there killed in front of me, right? Literally in front of me there, right? So, I've seen this a few times, and in there, it's a a very violent place, as you know, when it comes, right?
Yeah.
So these are terrible places to have to live, right? And go through, right? That's my experience. So, I come out of that, but I was really entrenched in the criminality and that lifestyle for so long, which is one of the things that's wonderful, about me today, and shows that being so entrenched in it all the way through, to such a high level as well, but to be able to completely do a 360 on my life, it is possible. Of course, it is. People are doing it all the time, and I'm living history of that, Bill. So are you.
Yeah, I was in prison. I was on the street, homeless, and I'm a world away from where I was, and I wouldn't change it for anything. My goal is to just help people, and and be successful in my ventures. And so on your last prison sentence, what was that like? Because I found myself trying to do better when I was in prison. And I know that's a hard thing to do because it's a violent place, like you said, and they don't want to do good in there. A lot of people don't, not all of them, but a lot of people in there are doing the wrong thing, and it's kind of hard to stay out of trouble when you're in there. So did you make the decision to change your life when you were in prison, or did you get out and then start um getting
It
used
was tough.
to?
Yeah. It was tough for me because even when I come out, I remember that day they made up the prison service. They made up this big like thing about I wasn't meant to be released. That was just to hold me, so I wasn't released in the morning where I should have been. I was released in the evening when the courts was coming in, Bill. And that's because they had an observation squad out there waiting for me because they're getting the team ready, right? They're waiting for time. So it was fucked up, it really was. It was like I'd done 12 years, all of that, big chunk of my life, a living hell. I went through one door into another outside, but then it was like them 12 years had disappeared and I was right back at where I started before. It was horrendous. It really was. So I had to, I had a lot of attention and stuff, and of course I had to, I had to get my life together, and after doing so long, people have to understand that it can take you a few years to get into a long-term sentence like that, but it can take you a couple of years, and it does at the other end, to get into normal living, right?
Yeah, yeah, you get what's the
Institutional.
institution? Yeah, institutionalized. Thank God, I never got that far, but I know people who have. Like, I know people who have done crazy things once they were released just to go back to prison, and that's crazy. I just because they can't live without the structure in their life. So I want to talk about some of the things you have coming out, like your book and your the crime files and all this stuff that you have going on. How did you get involved with all that once you were released from prison? Like, what were the steps you took to get involved and be a productive member of society?
I really built my life again, brick by brick, Bill. Really, I had to. I remember I had all kinds of problems, even addiction, right? And I went into a place, I can remember, the guy was still friends now. He owned the place in there, and he said, "Steve, you only need to change one thing." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Everything."
Yeah,
But that stuck with me, right? Because that's the succinct answer. I had to change everything. I had to, in many ways, be the opposite of what I was, right? I had to do a lot of work. I had to do a lot of giving. I done a lot of voluntary work. I didn't have no money or stuff like that. I had to learn about me. I had to learn about life. I had to learn actually what I liked, what I didn't like. I had to learn all of that stuff. I had to learn how to live. I had to take it down from basics. I had some true people in my life. Of course, they was my support, my guidance, and my family in them days. They had some companies, lorries and different stuff. So I was lucky enough. I went to work with him. I started at the bottom. I was given a harder road because my family are like that. I wasn't given an easier road, right? But I had the opportunity, but I had to take it. I had to work for it. I had to prove it. So I went from laborer to supervisor, to running my own contracts. Then I left the family to having my own business within 18 months. That was the start for me.
18 months from getting out of prison, you did all that?
Well, it was, I had about 9 months before that sorting myself out, Bill. But
Yeah.
then when I went to work, I was ready for work. I got my head down. I had to learn how to be a normal guy. It was good for me. Be humble, and learn and start from the bottom. I had to start from the bottom. But I had a drive, and I was happy to do stuff, and I recreate my life, and that was the start. That was the start of me. That was the start for me.
So when is this book? Is this book's already released? Is that correct?
Yeah, the Monkey Puzzle Tree, Bill, has been out a year. Now it's gonna be a movie. You know that it's been optioned to be a movie, right?
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. A major movie. It's got a big budget. We've we've got the script and everything. We're going to be filming it, a lot of it in the studio in Hollywood, right? Next year. So it's quite a story. Believe you me, it's all over the press, and it has been. It has been for a year now.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on all that, man. It's really incredible. I know you have your own. Is it an app, or you go on the TV and you can get it on Prime or something, right?
Yeah, we have the Stephen Gillen crime files. This is in association with Film Vault and Media Eye Digital. So I signed a worldwide TV deal with Film Vault, who's a global aggregate. That's a distributor of TV, film content. We've been building this now, for 9 months. Of course, I've got a YouTube channel. This is a smaller thing. I've interviewed a lot of the top mob guys. We do a lot of work. I'm going into the Russian mafia now, and we've got some unbelievable documentaries and series and different stuff now on the slate. We're going to be filming this year, so we're live. We've just recently built and finished our own studio with offices and all that. We put a lot of money in there and got that right because of the level we need to film at. So this is going to be exciting. So we're already on Roku TV, other digital platforms, Fimto and all that. We just went live on Amazon Fire TV to another 50 million audience just before Christmas. But in the next 6 to 9 months, we've got a roadmap, and this is contracted, obviously, where we're going to be migrating to many of the main top TV platforms like Sony, Sky, Netflix, Apple TV, Samsung TV. There's going to be a lot of work and a lot of stuff, but it's very exciting because we're already streaming worldwide.
That's incredible, man. To go from where you've been and to go from being in prison and being the kid with the bag going across the ocean, to being where you are now, it's incredible. And I definitely commend you for your work, man.
Listen, thank you, really thank you. And yeah, you have to work at it. Life is challenging anyway. What is important is that you sort yourself out, you work hard at it, you be honest, and you get good people around you. The people in your life are very, very important, Bill.
Yeah, definitely. I hear it all the time. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
I'll show you who you are.
Yeah.
My old mother used to say that. Do you know what? She's so right. She's so right. Yeah, so true.
Yeah, it's true. My mother used to say, "You're going to get in some trouble that I can't help you out of." And she was right. I'm like, "Mom, help me." And she couldn't do anything. It's too late. You know Joey Pyle, right?
Yeah, I know Joe very well. I mean, I knew older Joe, bless his soul.
Yeah.
I knew Joe very, very well, and I know younger Joe too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had Junior on my show. Shout out to Joey Pyle.
Yeah, shout out to Joey. They was, you know, his father. He was a class act. You know, he was a very, very respected man. He was a good friend of mine, and young Joe the same.
So who are some of the people that you have interviewed on your show? I know that there's some big names.
God, you know, I got some billionaires on there that I've done. Michael Francis, Bobby Louisi, John Eli, Anthony Attaralla. You know, people like that. There's a lot on there, really.
Yeah, I have a ton too, and I have a lot more coming. And I definitely want to have you back on in the future, and we could collaborate on some stuff. And I'm going to put your link in the description for the people. And where can they buy your book? Is it on Amazon?
They can get the book on Amazon, Bill, or anywhere like that. If they want a signed copy, you know, and my signature means anything to them, they can go, you know, to my personal site. There's a ton of free stuff on there as well. www.stephengillen.com. But look, you know, we'll put some links underneath and go into the Crime Files, guys, on the TV and different stuff. We're going to be bringing a lot of really exclusive, highly produced content on there, and some really cool stuff, Bill. You know.
I'm looking forward to it, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time for me, and looking forward to having you on in the future. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. Until next time, thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me on.